D and pool rewards. Two questions remain. What is the effect of D on the rewards that a pool can earn, and can this parameter ever be increased? Regarding rewards, as long as a pool produces at least one block, the value of the parameter has absolutely no effect on the rewards that a pool will earn. Okay, we already talked about this to an extent up in the earlier section. So this is just making it explicit here in this article. Only on the number of blocks that are distributed to the pool. So if a pool has exactly 1% of the stake, it will earn precisely 1% of the total rewards, provided that it maintains its expected performance. Okay, and so there's a little table here that helps us understand that. Now remember that they said that he wrote here that they're not going to impose any kind of performance penalty until we get below 0.8, I think it was. So let's just take a look here. Let's see. D factor, 0.9, 0.7, 0.4, 0.2. So what's going on here is at 0.9, okay, there's no performance penalty. There's 10% of the blocks. So that's 2,160 blocks available. That is, you take, to get the number of blocks that are available, you take the number of slots, and the active slot coefficient is 5%. So the number of slots is 432,000. You take 5% of that, and you get 21,600 blocks. 10% of that is 2,160. So there's 2,160 blocks available to stake pools in the current epoch where we are right now. So, you know, if you have if based on the amount of stake that your pool has, you might be expected to produce 22 of those blocks. If you produce 20, it doesn't matter. There's no performance penalty. You will get your share of your full share of the reward. So it says 1% of the stake. Then okay, your rewards will be 1% of the rewards, and I guess they're just calling that 10,000 ADA at this point. So then we go down to 0.7. And now, obviously, there's going to be more blocks available. Let's say you have 65 expected blocks and you hit all 65. Congratulations. You still get the same number of rewards, 1%, because you still have 1% of the stake. You made more blocks, all right, but you don't get more rewards because it's determined based on the amount of stake that's in your pool. So, that's this important aspect where we were talking about, even though the Byron era nodes are producing 90% of the blocks up here in this first row of the table, you still get the full rewards. If it was based on the total number of blocks, you'd be getting far less than 10,000 ADA in rewards here. Okay, so you're getting all the rewards. So you could say, well, I am making more blocks here. Well, okay, you shouldn't have gotten 10,000 for only making 22 blocks in this first era. So you're getting overpaid essentially in rewards for your block production. As we go down towards d equals 0, your block production is coming up, and you're starting to make the expected number of blocks that you will make in order to earn the 1% of the stake that's in your pool. Okay, so that's where that's going. Obviously, one of the consequences of this is that the rewards in ADA per block are going to be different in these different epochs. Of course, if you make 20 blocks and you get 10,000 ADA, right? I mean, the block reward is huge. Once you get down here and you're making 10 times or more the number of blocks and you're still getting the same amount of ADA, okay, well, the reward per block is just dropped by a factor of 10. So that's what's going on. Okay, so now we get down to the below 0.5 era. Many more blocks, all right, are available to be produced. Let's say you're expected to do 129. You get 129. You're still getting 10,000, right? Because it's giving you all of the rewards. It's not holding any of the rewards back. So that's just to illustrate that you're already from the get-go getting the full amount of rewards that you're expected to get, even when you get down to d equals 0. All right, it's based on the percentage of the stake. Now, however, if you start to not produce the number of blocks you're expected to produce, so if you have 1% of the stake, you're expected to produce 1% of the blocks. Okay, so you can see that here, 225,900 blocks, 259 is 1% of that. If you only make 250, well, then you made 96.52% of the blocks you were expected to get. And so you get 9,652 ADA as your total reward instead of the 10,000, because the performance penalty has been imposed. Now that performance penalty is imposed way up here, okay? It's above 0.7. So once we get to 0.78, that performance penalty will become active. It's just in the demonstration here, these two examples had perfect performance, so there was no loss. But it's not saying here that this performance penalty only comes in when d equals 0.2. No, it's active much earlier on in the setup, but they're just using this illustration of it here. So the best way to think about is you start out the epic with 0 rewards. Each block that you make, you earn some of those rewards, and if you get all of the blocks, then you'll get your full percentage of the reward based on what percentage of the stake your pool has. And if you don't, then you'll get reduced amount of rewards based on the percentage of the blocks that you made. So in this demonstration, you made 96.52% of the blocks. And so that is reflected here in the rewards. Okay, so that's straightforward. Finally, while D could in theory be increased, there would need to be a truly compelling reason to do so. Major protocol issue or fundamental network security, for example. Again, we already talked about this before getting to this point of the article. We would never envision actually doing this in practice. Why? Simply because we want to smoothly and gradually reduce the parameter to 0 in order to achieve our objective of true decentralization, right? If D goes back up, and bring back that analogy that I made of the relay race, okay, it means that there was a fumble of that baton pass. What they're saying is the only reason they would go back up with D is if, there was some sort of fumble, right? Either, the Shelley nodes are fumbling and in catching the baton from the prior runner, or, the BFT nodes, for whatever reason. Some other problem, or even a third thing, like in the race, a bird could swoop down and try to grab the baton, right? And there's no such thing like that going to happen in the computer terms, but that's just taking the place of some unforeseen weird thing that could happen that doesn't have to do with the runners themselves, or in this case the nodes themselves. So we'll be making this journey carefully, but with determination, step by step. If each step is taken thoughtfully and with confidence, you should not need to retrace them. Okay, I don't think that really is a question, but obviously that's true. It is, as long as you're not jumping ahead of yourself, there should be no need to go back and retrace the steps. As D becomes 0, the centralized IO servers will finally be switched off, and Cardano will become a model of decentralized blockchain that others aspire to be. All right, fantastic. The decline of centralized entities coincides with Cardano's rise towards full and true decentralization. In the near future, the Cardano blockchain will be solely supported and operated by a strong community of stake pools whose best interest is the health and further development of the network. This journey, which began with Shelley and the implementation of the D parameter, will take Cardano through a path of evolutionary stages in which the network will become progressively more and more decentralized as D decays. The journey will only end when the blockchain enters a state of irrevocable decentralization, a moment in time that will see networking, block production, and governance operating in harmony within a single environment. All right, very nice article. One other thing that I'd like to just finish off with is something that I've written up here in a small text editor. And I just like to go through that with you because it sort of illustrates some of these important concepts. And I've added a little bit of extra information. I think in one of the previous videos, I believe it was near the end of the first video that talks about how to stake your ADA with a dateless wallet, I said I had an illustration about the D parameter that I was going to show you. And I didn't have time in that video, or basically I developed that illustration, and it was going to take longer to go through that than I had time to allot to it in the video. So I've saved that to here. So that, in case you watched that and were wondering what happened to that illustration, I'm giving you that illustration here now at the end of this video. So I didn't forget. I just decided to take that out of the prior video. So if you look here, I've listed out some of the epochs. So epoch 209 started August the 3rd. The D parameter decentralization equals 1. Okay, so again, uninteresting from the point of the stake pools. All of the blocks are produced by the BFT nodes. Okay, the Byron era nodes. Epoch 210, again, rather uninteresting from the stake pool point of view. That started on August the 8th. 5 days later, D still equaled 0.1. Okay, and so now we are in epoch 211. That is the current epoch that started August the 13th, and currently D equals 0.9. So what's going on in this epoch? So the active stake snapshot that's being used to determine which pools have slot leadership capabilities, that snapshot of the stake was taken back here at this boundary between epoch 209 and 210. So as we crossed from epoch 209 into 210, the Shelley software took a snapshot of the stake distribution in the pools. And then in epoch 211, the slot leaderships, which is essentially how the stake pool gets determined when it can produce a block, that snapshot is used at the beginning of epoch 211 in order to calculate that leadership schedule. So essentially, what happens is, at the start, when there are blocks to be produced, the entire schedule for that epoch is calculated right at the beginning of the epoch. And what each stake pool receives is a list of potential slot leaderships. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed to make a successful block at that time. It just means that you have the leadership position for that particular slot. And what that means is that you get the first, or you get an opportunity, not necessarily the first, but you get an opportunity to propose a block for the blockchain in that slot. There could be another leader. And at that point, then you encounter what's called a slot collision. And that's part of the protocol. So there will be times when two pools will make a block for the same slot. And then the chain will have to determine which one of those that it will accept. Both of them could be perfectly valid. It doesn't mean, if yours isn't accepted, it doesn't mean that your pool did something wrong. Okay? It just means that the chain accepted the other one. And I think that process is going to be resolved randomly as long as both blocks are valid blocks. So essentially what happens here, and this also helps you see why it takes the current epoch plus another epoch for changes in your delegation preferences on pools to become active. Why? Well, because what happens here at 211 is that snapshot that was taken back here, all right, is used in order to calculate that leadership schedule. And then that runs through epoch 211. So essentially what that means is whatever delegation preferences you made in epoch 209, okay, before the end of epoch 210, they become active in 211. Why is that? Why do you have to have it done in 209? Well, because at this boundary between 209 and 210, that's where the snapshot is taken. That's where the software takes the snapshot of the stake. And it uses that snapshot in the next epoch. All right? So if you make a change in 209, you have to wait for the rest of 209 to run out. Then you have to wait one more epoch, right? Because the snapshot that was taken at the start of 210 isn't used to calculate the slot leadership schedule until you get to epoch 211. And that's the nature of, why you have to wait one epoch, as much as two epochs for your delegation change to take effect. All right, 10 days. So it's much slower than in the incentivized testnet. Okay, so where are we moving on now from here? Well, tomorrow, August 18th, the next epoch is going to start. D is going to be 0.8. The active stake snapshot, okay, the one that will be used to calculate the slot leadership schedule at the beginning of epoch 212, will be the one that was taken at the boundary between 210 and 211. Okay, so if you made a change to your stake pool delegation preferences in Daedalus in this epoch, okay, this epoch is already passed. All right, we're beyond this epoch now. Okay, so if you changed it back here, the snapshot was taken at this boundary between 210 and 211, and then that's used at the beginning of 212 to calculate the slot leadership schedule. So if whatever changes you made here in epoch 210 are not becoming active until epoch 212 starts tomorrow. All right, just so you realize that. D will equal 0.8. There'll be twice as many blocks produced by the stake pools. And what will also happen in epoch 212 is that rewards for epoch 211 are calculated. So just like there's a stake distribution snapshot, there's also going to be a reward snapshot. So at the end here of 211 and the beginning of 212, this boundary, there's going to be a snapshot taken of which pools produced the blocks and how many of those blocks they produced. And then that calculates the rewards. But now that snapshot, because there's an epoch delay between the taking of the snapshot and the implementation of the snapshot, then it'll be the beginning of epoch 213 until the rewards from that snapshot where they were calculated here at the beginning of epoch 212 are paid out. So here in epoch 213 we'll be down to D equals 0.78. That will begin on August 23rd. The active stake snapshot will be the one that was taken at the 211-212 boundary. Okay, so that's up here. So that means whatever changes you're making in your delegation preferences right now in this current epoch, epoch 211, will not become active on the blockchain until August the 23rd at the beginning of epoch 213. So then rewards for epoch 212, okay, the epoch that's going to start tomorrow, will be calculated there, and the rewards for epoch 211, the block production in epoch 211, will be paid at the beginning of epoch 213. Okay, so there's the cadence of snapshot and implementation. So for example, here in the current epoch 211, you have the snapshot, the stake snapshot at 209, at the boundary between 209 and 210, and that becomes active in 211, the next epoch. Likewise, okay, here in epoch 213, it's paying out the rewards that were earned 2 epochs back. Why? Because the snapshot for the rewards where they're calculated is taken at the boundary between 211 and 212, and then that's implemented. The reward snapshot is implemented at the beginning of 213. Okay, so you have snapshot, implementation, and so it hops an epoch. So when you get your rewards on August the 23rd, you're not getting the rewards for epoch 212. You're getting the rewards for epoch 211. So it's not just the prior epoch, it's the epoch, n minus 2. So 213 minus 2, that's 211. Okay, so this needs to be thought through carefully. And once you understand it, then things will make a lot more sense in the Cardano system. So I know this has been a long description, but I hope, I've gone through it in as much detail as I know how to do, in the hopes to help further the understanding of some of the literature that's being put out by Input Output. And I hope you've enjoyed going through this with you. I've certainly enjoyed talking through this article with you. once again, happy staking, and I look forward to having you in another video. So please check us out online at arcadiastakepool.com. Consider subscribing to our channel. I hope you'll also consider staking with us, our pools, Atoms, and Tesla. You can find us either in the Daedalus wallet or you can stake from Yoroi. And once again, happy staking.